conservation, employee. Uh, can I start? Yeah. So you can see that internal CSR is talking about the energy and water conservation. It is also very important that what is your consumption on a per capita basis where you're operating. So if you are able to bring down the energy consumption and water conservation in the building where your office is there, that is also very equally important part of that. And definitely which is falling under the HR also is employee welfare, their training, their healthcare, and their affirmative action are employment of backward section and corporate governance. As far as external CSR is concerned, which is falling under that, because sometimes technically, as per Ministry of Corporate Affairs, the internal CSR, which here it's mentioned, falls under the human resources, HR department, not under the CSR. So, but when you're talking about the external CSR, right from community development to capacity building to environmental protection, healthcare, creating awareness on education, health, and social issues, taking initiative, online information, education, and another one is sports also, sports for development. That is also very important. If you see the website of the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, you'll be able to find out how they are able to define the CSR as per their Article 135. So we'll just have a look on that. What is the present form of the CSR? So we are entering in an era of new hopes and new fear. Hope, I think this is the right time to talk about this, is we are hopeful that COVID will be over in next couple of days or couple of months. And fear, because everybody is in the fear, living in the fear for the last 2-3 months. So you can see that single bottom line is not working. Government is totally failed, or government is not able to handle all this situation, not only in India, but everywhere, even in Europe, which is supposed to be the most advanced healthcare system. So everybody is under fear and hope also. Hope because as a human being, we have to live with the hope. And both demand strategic but well-grounded actions. These actions may come initially from your deep concern, fear, or even a sense of panic. So right now we are in the sense of panic, and what online classes are going on, online interaction is going on. That is also a very much new hope. This is a part of the new innovations. But to be sustainable over time, our action must ultimately be connected to our positive aspirations, perhaps our choice to ensure that people, communities, and all of nature can flourish indefinitely. We must change our attitude, belief, and show genuine concern for the future generation. Let's talk about what are the present trends. All over the world, board of directors are starting to take account of sustainability and CSR issues as never before. As I mentioned that 10 years back, when I used to go to the different companies and talk about the CSR, general answer was that no, we are not interested to work on the CSR. But now the question is, they said how we can be involved, how our company can be involved, not why. So why is replaced by how. That is one of the very positive side of the CSR and the trend changing in the last 10 years. Creating sustainable revolution through business organization is one of the most urgent and important mission of our time, with passion, energy, and determination. When we are talking about the business houses, so corporation is directly or indirectly contributed to 21st century's ecological and social challenges. In the age of globalization, sustainable strategies give corporation the choice of getting ahead of the curve, define and redefine new rules, and being rewarded by their stakeholders for behaving responsibly. MNCs hold the future of our planet in their hands, which is very true. Government is only confined to India, government is only confined to their own respective countries, but multinational companies, they have a very strong base and they have a presence in all over the world. So just have a look on the research recent finding. The leading economists who study economic of climate change says that we have 10 to 20 years before we reach an irreversible tipping point, which is again a very, very important and very alarming situation. Part of the world is losing access to food, water, and experiencing other severe resource crunch, environmental health, and population problem. So in isolation, each problem is a big problem. So you cannot say that each problem is different. This problem is bigger than this one, or this problem is less than this one. So rather than improving things, situation is worsening. We have to show our serious concern, stop talking and get on with making our world more sustainable with responsible actions. I was impressed to see this quotes, which I'm just talking about the next one. Why we need business to be responsible. All of a sudden, all these agencies, whether you talk about ILO, United Nations, everything. So we still have large population which is living in the below poverty line, not only in India but across the world. So that is the reason that business houses needs to be involved in this kind of positive activity with the resources they have. Let's see that what next slide is saying. This is an interesting one. Only when the last tree has been cut down, only when the last river has been poisoned, when the last fish has been caught, then only we will realize that money cannot be eaten. So the approach of single bottom line to make more profit, to make more money has vanished with thanks to COVID and other problems we have been facing. So people are realizing that money is not everything. We have to save our nature, we have to save our biodiversity, we have to save our rivers, we have to save our important wealth of the nature. So it's a balancing fact. So making profit is also very important to run a business. Taking care of the society is also very important. Taking care of the environment is also equally important. So it's a balancing act. But what are the four major challenges of sustainability? The first is energy and climate change. Second is the food and water, waste and toxicity. Third, poverty and social justice. And when you're, I'm sure that number of our participants here must be working in the different areas, and directly or indirectly they'll be talking about these areas. Climate change is very big area where everybody has to work. Food and water is also very important area. Waste is not only the organic waste. We are talking about the e-waste also, with a growing number of the electronic gadgets around our life. And that is also very challenging. Poverty and social justice. So all these four areas are the major challenges for the sustainability managers, directors in charge, decision makers. So let's see what are the 7 steps. We are able to define some 7 steps for change process. First is it's a wake up call. Wake up and decide. Visioning, awareness, baseline, and priorities. Definitely, one has to wake up and see that, okay, I have to do it. Not as an individual, but as an organization also. Inspired shared vision, access current realities, develop strategies, creative solutions, build the case for change, mobilize commitments, embed and align with the ongoing projects, whether you talk about UN SDGs. Why is sustainability and CSR important in India? To manage risk by integrating environmental and social performance with business strategy. To strengthen, we have more participants joining us. To strengthen our lessons to operate in the local community due to a strong relationship with the stakeholders and regulatory authorities. To access international market. To improve access to the funds and investors. To reduce cost, saving of inputs, increasing the productivity, improvement of supply chain and customer relationship. So when we are talking about access to the international market, myself and Dr. Upadhyay has worked on a project, as mentioned earlier also. The project name was SCBI, which was one of the government offshoot of Netherlands government. And I was surprised to see that their office in India, they hired 10 experts, and with the FICCI CSR Center of Excellence, which where Dr. Upadhyay was heading. So we were helping Indian MSMEs looking for the export market in the European market. So the Netherlands government project was basically to train and sensitize MSMEs from India looking and exporting their product and services in the European market. And when I said that, okay, why you are doing it? They said, okay, we cannot, or it's not illegal in Netherlands. But our customers or consumers, they are so aware. They said, okay, if this company is working on the on sustainable issues. If this company is working on the CSR issues, then only we will entertain the company, or they will prefer to buy product and services on the company. So that was a very different experience for us. Second is to improve access to funds and investors. So UN, another offshoot of United Nations, is name is PRI, which is Principle of Responsible Investments. So they have clear guidelines. Not many people are aware about it, but they have international standards for the investors also. If you are investing in some countries, they have to see that what kind of systems is working on in that particular area on sustainability issues. So they have clear guidelines. I'm not going to mention about it, but if you're interested, because we have some bankers here also, I don't know whether they're aware about this. So what kind of guidelines? United Nations, PRI is working on that. They have a head office in the UK. So all these things are there. Why is sustainability and strategic CSR is important in India is to motivate your employees, to recruit high quality employees, to strengthen relationship with other stakeholders in the supply chain. That is another, I'll give you the example on that also. To ensure natural resources do not run out, to prevent pollution and health hazards, to increase awareness of consumer, to build a sustainable future society and business. So when we are talking about strengthening a relationship of the supply chain management, again, I'm giving you the example of Tata Motors. I was consulting some of your project in Rudrapur unit. So when I went there, one of the senior managers said that, okay, our transport system, our hospitality sector is totally outsourced. But I was happy to see that even the driver who was hired by the third party, which was totally outsourced by Tata Group, that was also their healthcare, their other economic activity, their social activity were taken care by the Tata Group. Because in some of the cases, companies trying to escape when it's matter of supply chain. How they're escaping is they say that, okay, we are only responsible for our own employees. We are not responsible as far as our outsourced employees are concerned. But to make sure your supply chain management is also well established and also taken care by the CSR practices. So what is the current status and perception of sustainable in CSR? So 50% of Indian companies consider CSR as part of sustainable business rather than philanthropy. An imbalance between the internal and external CSR dimension. The vast majority of Indian companies include external dimension. Only 20% includes internal dimension like working condition, environmental condition, all this area. However, the vast majority of multinational companies consider CSR part of sustainable business, including a better balance between the internal and external CSR dimension, which I think that it was mentioned in the previous slides. So we'll speak about how this evolution of CSR is taking place in India. So it started from profit focus. The company exists only for a short-term shareholder profit. Next stage was philanthropy, which was passive donations to charity when requested. The third stage was community affair, strategic giving linked to the business interest, include cost-related marketing. And now we are talking about the corporate community investments, strategic partnership initiated by the company. And now the final stage which we are right now is a sustainable business model. So government of India is also working on, not many people are aware about it. They are also talking about investing, sorry, investing in the social business model. So all of you know that the recent time, a lot of money in India coming in the startup is coming to the venture capitalist. So, but in the social or sustainable business model, companies are not able to generate funds, or not able to get the funds. So government of India is talking about a social sector exchange now, and guidelines are not finalized, but they're almost ready, which is submitted to the SEBI, and SEBI is already working on those guidelines. And I'm sure that once that is in place, sustainable and social business models will be getting the funds to the venture capital or CSR funds also. Or one of the option is that CSR fund can also be invested as an equity in the company. So these are the challenges for the CSR in India. So lack of community participation in the number of CSR activities, need to build local capacities, issues of transparencies are also there, which is addressed by Ministry of Corporate Affairs also. Non-availability of well-organized non-government organization at a local level. So the companies are finding this kind of problem. In the last month only that we are working with EY, Ernst & Young, they said 75% companies in India are not able to spend money, their CSR funds through local NGOs. So first challenge is they are not able to identify the local NGOs, their credential and due diligence. So that is another area where we need to work on that. Visibility factor, as I mentioned that branding is also important, so visibility has to be there. Narrow perception towards the CSR initiative. Normally people think CSR is a kind of punishment posting. So when the guys posted on the CSR division, they think that I'm here temporarily, so I don't have to learn anything about the CSR. It's just a time pass. So this perception is also wrong. One has to be very passionate about it. He has to be, we call it, if you're working in the CSR or the sustainability, the basic qualification is a PDF. We call it, what is PDF is passion, determination, and focus. When you're working with the community, community is very simple, community is very humble, so we need the right kind of support system through the CSR. Non-availability and understanding of the clear CSR guidelines, that is also there. The recent things, people are not very clear as a Prime Minister Relief Fund and state level Chief Minister Relief Fund. That clarity was also not there during the COVID time also. That PF fund is falling under the CSR, but you are spending money in the Chief Minister Fund that is not falling under the category of CSR. So these kind of confusions are still there. So lack of consensus on implementing CSR issue at management level. So these are the basic challenges. Many companies are able to overcome this, but I think that when you're starting on the CSR, these need to be addressed. What are the benefit of this for the business to work on the CSR and sustainability? So when you're tired, just let me know so that I will stop it for 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes break. Okay, next 5 minutes, we'll stop it for 10 minutes. Maybe we'll ask for your... business transformation and sustainable approach to management translate into identification of the areas that create the organization long-term value. Reduction of opening cost due to more effective resource management across the entire supply chain. Effective economic, social, and environmental risk management. Business stability relying on good relation with the key stakeholders. Building loyalty and trust of customer through dialogue and engagement. So finally, the threats and risks into development opportunity for organization from the public and private sector. So we are able to find out this very interesting findings, which says that if the company is working in the CSR or ethical company or sustainable company, so the total contribution and the productivity of the company will go up to the level of 38%. So you can have a look on this breakup. What are the benefit area and what kind of percentage is there? So it will reduce your recruitment cost. It will reduce your attrition cost by 2%. It will increase employee productivity by 10%. Eco-efficiency in manufacturing will go up to 5%. It will bring down your cost of manufacturing. Eco-efficiency at commercial site will go to -20%, which will increase your profitability. Increase revenue and market share by 5%. Lower insurance and borrowing costs will go up to 5%. So total contribution to a profit increase of at least is 38%. When I go to the different business schools and talking to the preschool students, would you like to join a company like Satyam or Infosys or Tata? So definite answer and obvious answer is Tata. Reason is very clear. People are willing to join Infosys, Wipro, Tata Group. Why? Because The branding of that company is very important. The branding of Narayana Murthy is very important. Branding of Azim Premji is very important. Branding of Ratan Tata is very important. So definitely, if Ratan Tata or Tata Group doesn't have to give a big ads in the paper, attrition rate is also less. Productivity of the human resource is also very high. So which is 38% is the big number. So I will take this slides later, giving some example of the responsible and the sustainable business model in India and outside also. Would you like to, can I see some kind of chat box is full, 25 chats? Okay, good, good. So Rajiv ji is saying that my voice is breaking. So there are, I think we have more than 25 questions and we have only 10 minutes to discuss. So would you like to speak or how do you go ahead with that? Anybody would like to unmute themselves and maybe would like to speak?
Yeah, hello everyone. If anybody has any questions, so kindly come forward and ask the questions.
Yeah, I'm Dinesh Pruthi from State Bank of India. My question is, what do you mean by internal CSR? How CSR helps in developing HR initiatives and employee benefits?
Dinesh, thank you for your question. Normally, initially when CSR was not very clear to the number of corporates, because I'm talking about the technical part of it. So Ministry of Corporate has, that Ministry of Corporate Affairs, which is another department called IICA, Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs. So they made it very clear that HR kind of activities which are internal, we call it a HR activity or CSR activity, are not falling under the CSR activity. Suppose you are spending X amount for the betterment of the employees, for their welfare, for the health and all. So technically that will not consider as a CSR. So in other way, we are saying internal CSR or external CSR, but it is considered as a purely a HR activity for the welfare of the for the children, for the welfare of the employees. All these activities are not considered as the CSR activity. Anything which is falling under the CSR is totally external. If you are working in your community where you have a factory, where your offices are there, so that guidelines is falling under Article 135, which is a part of Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs. And if you see that, you'll be able to clarify on those points.
My question is related to this welfare of employees. Can CSR fund company can spend CSR fund on welfare activities of employees?
See, that's why I'm saying that the ministry, as Indian companies are there, so ministry has keep on changing. Also, they keep on adding or deleting some of the points. But as far as my understanding is concerned, so any welfare for the employees is not considered as a CSR fund.
Anil?
Yes, sir. Dr. Upadhyay.
Yeah.
Would you like to speak on that?
As per our MCA regulation, any activity towards staff welfare is not 2% CSR. But of a recent notification under COVID, if things are done for COVID and they are not for more than 25% of the employees, it can be counted as 2% CSR. Thank you.
So this is Dr. Upadhyay, this is a new notification by the ministry?
Yes. Yeah, just 10 days back.
Okay. That's what I'm saying, Dineshji. Number
Please come again, sir. What he has told, sir, Dr. Upadhyay? Please come again, sir.
See, as per MCA guidelines,
Mhm.
welfare to the staff is not part of 2% CSR.
Okay.
But there has been a recent notification where COVID activities are considered as part of CSR. And these can be spent up to 25% of the employees towards COVID or CSR.
25% of
Is
the
it
employees.
possible that we can you can share that
25% of funds or 21% of employee?
25% of the employees. I can share with you the notification from the government.
Does this include a support staff, or it can include any general staff, these 25% employees?
Yeah, this includes staff. I can share with you the notification.
So, Dr. Upadhyay, this is Pooja. The question that I think the clarity that we need is when you say employee or staff, are we saying the people who are on roll of the organization? What about the extended staff like a security, housekeeping staff? Can we spend money on them? Is that considered under external or internal CSR?
This is for your staff actually. For people who are on contract and others, you can give one-time grant as per the notification.
Under COVID?
Under COVID only.
So I think this is a very special case for the COVID, because that's something that the ministry is coming out with number of notification in the last 2 months, including some notification from Niti Aayog also, how to handle and how to interact and how to engage NGOs also. Because initially engaging NGOs was different, but after the COVID, the new notification from Niti Aayog also has come up. Ministry of Corporate Affairs is also talking about and engaging and empowering NGOs also. So there are the different guidelines and notifications from the ministry. So I'll appreciate if Dr. Upadhyay can share that guidelines also for my learning also.
I'll put it on the IICSR website.
Oh, that would be great. So if you keep on watching and looking at the IICA website and the Ministry of Corporate Affairs websites, you will be able to get all the notification when you're spending money on the CSR. So that clarification need to be there before you consider this as a CSR or non-CSR.
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah, Akansha.
Sir, when you talked in your slide about ISO 26000, so there was a clause that there should be at least 10% employees who are CSR certified or are sustainability certified.
Yeah.
So for an organization, let us take an example of an international MNC. To get the certification, is this a mandate? And how will we quantify these 10% employees? And from a marketing and an HR standpoint, how is it helpful for the company? Obviously, from an HR standpoint, if we are recruiting, we can tell the people that we are a very sustainable organization. But usually when we see ads of Reliance Foundation or Tech Mahindra, they will not usually advertise that this is an we are ISO 26000 certified. So how will it help as a branding tool for them?
See, Akansha, ISO 26000, interestingly, is not it's just a suggestion kind of guidelines by ISO. It is not a mandatory that you have to implement that. So when we started working on the ISO 26000, that they have a clear guidelines on the number of areas. But as far as suggestion, like that's something that they suggest that okay, you should have a 10% employees certified by the certified or qualified or oriented on the CSR and sustainability. But they are not a guide. We have to follow as an Indian company. We have to follow the guidelines of Ministry of Corporate Affairs also. And we have to follow that only. So ISO 26000 is just a supporting and guiding force. Nothing to worry about this. I think Dr. Upadhyay also worked on this ISO 26000. So Dr. Upadhyay would like to speak on ISO 26000, this 10% point.
ISO 26000 is only a guiding principle. It's not compliance. If you are ISO, you cannot be ISO 26000 certified. You can be only compliant with that. So there's a difference. It's a guiding principle.
Yeah. So the suggestion is that as a responsible company, if your 10% employees are oriented about CSR or sustainability, So that is their suggestion. So it's not a mandatory by ISO 26000. And as I mentioned that we have to follow the Indian guidelines of Ministry of Corporate Affairs under New Company Act. So you have to see that.
Sir, I have one more question. So you had mentioned that CSR funds it is being proposed by the government. CSR funds will be used by the owners as a part of the equity. So what my understanding of equity is that something that is being invested by the owner of the company. The 2% profit as per law has to be mandatorily spent on the social activities. So that means they cannot take this as a part of their equity, or they cannot keep this as a part of their profit. So can you please throw some light on this?
See, I think there's a confusion between this 2% and investment part. I mentioned that government in the last budget, or Nirmala Sitharaman, the finance minister, spoke about something which is called the social sector exchange. Because what is happening in the social sector is the social sector is also facing problem in getting the funds. So she mentioned, and in a country like Singapore, Mauritius, UK, Canada, there's a proper social sector exchange. Suppose I'm working as a social enterprise, and whether I'm running an NGO or CSO under or trust or foundation, I'm not supposed to take funds. Or if some X company is interested to support my program, they cannot spend, they cannot invest because they are not supposed to take the equity, and that's why it's called a non-profit organization. When you're talking about the by the word itself, by the name itself, it is saying that it is a non-profit organization. So technically, you cannot prove that okay, you are making a profit. But there are so many good social and sustainable business model in the country and outside country also. I will mention in my next slides also, which need money to scale up, to expand their operation, but they are not technically they are not supposed to get money. So government of India is now considering very seriously, and as I mentioned that I already received some inputs from government of India that SEBI is that SEBI is already working on those guidelines, so that social sector exchange will support this kind of activity. Now, for example, NTPC is sitting on a 200 crores kind of funds. So maybe out of 200 crores, which is 2% of their profit, out of 200 crores, they can spend X amount for under the social sector exchange to invest in particular social enterprise. So, and as far as 2% is concerned, so the definition of 2% is if your profit is more than 5 crore or your turnover is more than 500 crores, then after tax, profit after tax, that 2% of that need to be spent on the CSR. So that's 2% is different. Social sector exchange and this investment on the social enterprise is totally different. So you consider this two different projects. Is it clear, Akansha?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Sir, is it possible? Can you share your slide? I had certain questions from your previous slide where you were talking about that there will be a reduction in the cost of recruitment of employees when we have a good CSR program. So probably can you just share that slide once again and explain the pointers if time permits?
Okay, definitely.
I have one small question.
Yeah, Vijayji.
Regarding this ATG, is it compulsory that every CSR project required ATG from NGO? They required it as per policy norms, because most of the companies are not seeing this, not expecting a ATG from NGO, and they are supporting to small NGOs. But sometimes CSR or corporate executives asking about the ATG compulsory. So what is the law? Upadhyay sir or Anil sir?
Vijayji, law doesn't say that you have to have ATG. But
Okay.
as a practice, I've seen practically everybody asks for ATG. Especially in this Corona time, when distribution of food was done, this is where there are a lot of NGOs who are having problem with the corporate because they are not paying them. Now they say for ATG. When they gave them initially order, they were not asking for ATG because as per law, it's not required for 2% CSR.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
So there's a between law and
the same question related to ATG and 12A, that recently Sitharaman has just our finance minister, they had said that there should be change in 12A and ATG, renewation of ATG for all NGOs, and need to go through 12AB. So what is the exact clause, and how we have to deal with this situation? How we can deal with this?
Both are not related. ये आपस में related नहीं है. They are not related to each other. They are separate things actually. And second thing is no notification has come still.
But sir, you rightly mentioned, Dr. Upadhyay, that this is not, nobody is saying that. But when you ask for the money from the corporates, you ask for the money or funds from the PSUs, their due diligence is talking about that you should have or you must have 12A and ATG.
Yes.
And even in Niti Aayog, they have a portal and they started a project called Darpan, which is giving a authenticity to the different NGOs. So you have to register your NGO with the Darpan portal, which is a part of Niti Aayog. Again, if you are not having the 12A and ATG, so you cannot register there. So I think it is almost mandatory to have 12A and ATG for that.
But the problem is, right now they have changed some rule, some GR is there, that they are going to apply, they are going to reject all the ATG certifications of NGO and asking them to go through 12A, asking them to go through 12AB and ATG formalities. So what is the latest update?
See, latest update is after COVID. That's something that after COVID, government suddenly realized that there's the importance of NGOs working in the grassroots level, right? And before COVID, the situation was very different. They were trying to blacklist number of NGOs, but they realized that NGOs are working at a grassroots level. So it is important to have a win-win kind of relationship between the corporate and the NGOs. Yes, you should have a due diligence for the NGOs. That is also very desirable, because a lot of fraud NGOs or fake NGOs are already working in this industry. But yes, I think that if government follow all these guidelines, I'm sure that kind of activity NGOs can work at a grassroots level in the remote location or other location. All the big companies or the PSU cannot reach there. So it is very important to have a relationship with the NGOs by the government. Not only government, but multinational companies also. So because my experience in the different area during the disaster time is that it's a very strong relationship between the corporate and the NGO. So, but as far as new guidelines are concerned, so there in the last 2-3 months, so many guidelines, so many notifications are coming from the ministry. So many so it's difficult to follow, and they keep on changing also. As I mentioned, that Darpan is one of the portal by Niti Aayog. So if you see that if you go and visit the Darpan portal, it will definitely ask the registration of the NGOs with 12A and ATG. And for ATG, first you should have a 12A registration from Income Tax Department. Any other question or?
Any other questions from anyone? Kindly come forward.
Hello.
Ji, Hardeep ji.
Yes, sir. Sir, I'm having one question. Sir, since the company has came into being or regarding expenditure of CSR since 2013, most of the company have started their view has changed regarding expenditure of CSR. But till now, most of the companies are facing problem regarding what type of expenditures are accountable for CSR expenditure and what are the expenditure which are not coming under CSR. Actually, there is no correct guideline or there is one SOP is required from government side which can be followed and by all the companies at a time. If we see that most of the companies, every company is working in their own way. There should be a separate guideline or SOP should be defined by the company, by the government itself, so that all the activity and all the companies should follow the same SOP regarding the expenditure of CSR.
So, Hardeep ji, you are representing which company?
HPCL Mittal Energy.
Okay, so you are heading the CSR division. Are you,
No, I'm not heading. I'm assistant manager CSR.
okay, so but are you trained? Have you received any kind of training on the CSR?
Sir, I am a postgraduate from Excise Ranchi.
Okay, but organization ने आपको कोई ट्रेनिंग नहीं दिलाया अभी तक तो CSR में and how to deal with the CSR kind of activities.
नहीं सर, वो सारी चीजें हैं क्योंकि मेरा रूरल डेवलपमेंट का बैकग्राउंड है.
Okay, okay.
रूरल डेवलपमेंट का बैकग्राउंड है, एंड दिस इज माय फोर्थ कंपनी व्हिच आई एम वर्किंग राइट नाउ.
Okay, good, good.
हाँ जी सर, तो बस यही है सर, चैलेंजेस हम ये फेस करते हैं कि जैसे अब मेरी चौथी कंपनी है, तो पिछली कंपनीज का उनके थॉट एंड प्रोसेस अलग जाते थे. हर एक कंपनी में जाता हूँ तो उनके क्राइटेरिया अलग हो जाते हैं, उनका एक्सपेंडिचर वे ऑफ थिंकिंग अलग हो जाता है. बहुत सारी कंपनी मतलब कि क्या बोलते हैं, डिस्ट्रिक्ट फंड्स में या डिस्ट्रिक्ट कलेक्टर के थ्रू उनके थ्रू इम्प्लीमेंट करती है. कुछ कंपनी डिस्ट्रिक्ट कलेक्टर के थ्रू नहीं, खुद अपने से इम्प्लीमेंट करती है. तो अगर राजस्थान की बात करेंगे, मोस्ट ऑफ द डिस्ट्रिक्ट कलेक्टर वो अपने अंडर में ले लिया है CSR कि अकॉर्डिंग आवर कन्वर्जेंस विद कॉर्पोरेट्स और डिस्ट्रिक्ट कलेक्टर एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन का उनका कन्वर्जेंस होता है, उनकी प्रॉपर SOP या गाइडलाइन होती है, उसके थ्रू इम्प्लीमेंट करते हैं. लेकिन ये बहुत सारे स्टेट्स में लैकिंग है.
देखिए सर, इसमें जैसे गुजरात ने किया था, गुजरात ने आई थिंक दैट गुजरात वाज द फर्स्ट स्टेट वी स्टार्टेड द गुजरात CSR authority, I think, right? So now Punjab is also having some authority, and other states, Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra, they also, state government is also talking about this. तो इसमें क्या हो रहा है कि even we are confused sometime क्योंकि आपका CSR, when government is saying in 2013 में this bill has come, and 2014 में the new government by PM Modi was there, and Modi जी का agenda जो था that was purely on Swachh Bharat and building the toilets. So every PSU and every company was running toward the building this toilets pan India. So जितना हमारा अगर हम 70% नहीं बोलते तो at least 60% of the funds was transferred to the this kind of activity. In the last 2-3 months, now what is happening is that all CSR fund is going toward the COVID action plan, right? Prime Minister ने तो इसको जो campaign चल रही है, the Prime Minister Relief Fund, there was a debate also, but the Prime Minister Relief Fund में a lot of companies are finding it easy to sign a check of say 100 crore rather than spending 20 projects of say 50 crore, right? So especially the PSUs, they are more than happy to sign a check and submit to the Prime Minister Fund, and they are comfortable because there is no audit objection, there is no vigilance inquiry, there is no financial implication on that, right? So इसमें ये सब चीजें नई होती रहती हैं. और as I mentioned that state government is also very stakeholder for that. If you are based in Punjab, so I'm sure that CSR head को कभी political लोग भी phone करते हैं, MLA is also calling them, MP is also calling them to come and spend their CSR fund in their constituency. So all these things are happening everywhere. It's not only that Punjab is facing or Uttarakhand is facing. Pan India, these kind of things are happening, and companies are under pressure to spend their CSR project to make their MLA and MP happy in that area, right? But as far as new guidelines are concerned, so the government of India के ही guidelines हैं, and इसमें we already spoke to the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, and they are willing to come and join us in some of the session. जो मैं चाहूँगा कि कभी हम लोग सेशन करें और corporate affairs से जो भी इनका senior official है, they will join us and make all the picture clear to everybody. What is the latest form of CSR? क्या उनकी guidelines हैं? They are also facing this problem because they are working with a very limited manpower. And they are offering us कि हम लोग अलग-अलग state में इस type का कोई program चलाएं, so that all the stakeholder in the state stake in that particular state. For example, in Punjab, if you have to conduct this, so we would like to invite the state government, Punjab also. We would like to invite NGOs also, corporates working in the Punjab, so that orientation by Ministry of Corporate Affairs will be conducted in that particular area to clarify this gray area. तो ये हम कोशिश कर सकते हैं. मैंने बोला ना, जैसे उपाध्याय सर ने बोला कि रोज नए नोटिफिकेशन आ रहे हैं ड्यूरिंग कोविड टाइम, so it is very difficult to keep an eye on that कि क्या हो रहा है क्या नहीं हो रहा, and they keep on changing also as per their convenience.
Thank you, sir.
Anil, I have shared that notification from government for COVID.
Oh, thank you, sir.
इसमें staff और उसका mention है. I have shared that already on the website.
चलिए, I think that मैं बाकी का वो slide खत्म करता हूँ.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please continue with the training.
Is it clear? I think it's visible now. Right. So the previous slide, I think some of the participants were talking about this one. Right. So you can take a screenshot if you're interested. And it's very important also because 38% breakup jo isme diya hai, that is also applied to every company. If not 38%, at least even if it is 10%, and the productivity of the company is going up to 10%, that is also a big achievement on the name of CSR and sustainability. So should I move ahead now? Next slide. So these are some of the successful social and responsible business model I would like to share, which are there in the industry, in the market for the last many years. Amul, which was a white revolution by Dr. Varghese, started in Gujarat. So Amul is a household name everywhere. So you can see that the white revolution is making the difference everywhere. Seva, which was a self-employed women association, is also a very different NGO and social business model, which is self-dependent. So they are not asking funding from here and there. So they are making the different products from the artisans in Gujarat and even in UP. They have branches in UP and other states also. So they are creating a lot of employment for the women self-help group in that area. Akshay Patra is in the midday meal program, which is again a very big foundation. Vatsalya was another very interesting project, which we call it a budget hospital also, based in Karnataka. You see that Vatsalya Healthcare Center, that is also a social and sustainable business model, which is again helping the community also, and they are making profit also. So Arvind Eye Hospital is another case studies. Jaipur Rugs, based in Jaipur, is also model. Grameen Bank, which was initiated by Professor Mohammad Yunus, who got Nobel Prize also. Grameen Bank and Grameen Communication they are based in Bangladesh. That is another very interesting story of social and sustainable business model. So Jaipur Rugs, this is some write-up on Jaipur Rugs. It was initiated by Mr. Chaudhary. The foundation was an entity with a unique vision where the elementary core of functioning is to work for the inclusive business development model that links grassroots artisans with the world market. Jaipur Rugs aims to work for the betterment of the lives of the artisans by ensuring the socio-economic empowerment of weaver community. The vision of Jaipur Rugs, each carpet is woven out of the love and compassion and it's inevitably become the product of humanity. So this is a very successful business model. So this is a philosophy of Arvind Eye Hospital based in Tamil Nadu. Intelligence and capability are not enough. There must also be the joy of doing something beautiful. Being of service to God and humanity means going well beyond the sophistication of the best technology to the humble demonstration of courtesy and compassion to each patient. Today we are talking about the state-of-art technology in the hospital, in the education institute. But if you're not courtesy, if you don't have a courtesy and compassion, you are not a right kind of business model. So this is the business model of Seva. Seva main goal is to organize women workers for full employment. And the best part is, so in the women, they don't have to come to their office. If you're a household working for 2 hours, able to do something for 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, you are paid for that. And this is very strong model in Gujarat. Full employment means employment whereby worker obtain work security, income security, food security, social security. At least healthcare, childcare, and shelter. Seva organized women to ensure that every family obtain full employment. By self-reliance, it means that women should be autonomous and self-reliant, individually and collectively, both economically and in terms of their decision-making ability. So I'm sharing some of the case study, international case studies. So this is a case study of British Petroleum. In 2000, as a part of the rebranding itself as a Beyond Petroleum and to bring to become highly responsible company, highly responsible petroleum company, British Petroleum announced a corporate commitment to reduce its emission by greenhouse gases by 10% in 2010. By 2010, British Petroleum achieved this cut in only 2 years and in the process saved itself $650 million. So the target was this, but within 2 years they were able to achieve this. So British Petroleum, which was not very respected company at one time became the most respectable company in the Britain. BP reflected that even if the program had cost money to BP, it would have been worth doing it because it made them the kind of company that the best talent wants to work for. So that is the best part, that who's working for which company and how you are able to bring the productivity of the company. So that is one of the successful case study of the British Petroleum. So this is another flip side of another company. It's again a Swedish group called IKEA. They were found, there was a media report that IKEA dropped 5 plugged Chinese down bedding from the shop. So in the bedding, they were using the live, the bedding from they were plucking this from the living birds. So that was another challenge, and the sale of IKEA fell down to 38 to 40% kind of thing within after the flash of this news. So finally, IKEA has to apologize to the consumer. They committed that they will not repeat this kind of practices. So this is, as I mentioned, that in India the difference is that the government has to bring a new company act to implement CSR. But in the European market, I work with some of the European groups. So I found that the consumer is so aware if X company is not working on the ethically, the consumer will reject the company. I'll give you the example. When I was working with this Dutch government project, there was a group from Jaipur. The turnover of that furniture group was hardly 2 to 3 crore rupees. And 2 young boys came into the family business, educated in UK and other countries. So they came and said, okay, we would like to work on the CSR and other activity. I said, but your turnover is too less and you're not supposed to do this activity. But they said, sir, we have to do it because my customer in Europe is demanding you are using the wood to bring the furniture. Are you doing something good for the nature, good for the trees, plantation and all? So I was surprised that a small company trying to enter the European market, they were forced to do CSR. So that is the difference. Like in India, what is happening is a lot of manipulation on the paper side. All the people working in the government knows that despite of spending 100 crores, the outcome of that CSR activity is not so visible. Why? Because the companies in India are working very differently and nobody is asking that where the CSR funds are going. Especially the community is not supposed to ask them where CSR fund has been spent by this particular group. So what is the message today is, if the location is the mantra for the real estate agent. And if you're working in the sustainable and responsible business model, collaboration, education, and networking is a mantra for successful sustainable change campaign. So this is what we are doing. We are creating education. We are creating a collaboration also. We are creating a networking also. And this is going to be very continuous process because if I see that I have spent more than 10 years experience, I'm better than anybody else. So that is a major mistake I'll be doing. So we have to learn from each other. We have to add value to our work from each other. A young boy, girl coming out of the business school or from the different agencies, they might come with new kind of ideas. More innovation is needed. More R&D is needed to implement the right kind of successful business models. So coming together is a beginning. Keeping together is a progress. Working together is a success. So this is today was totally orientation kind of program. Why CSR is important, why sustainability issues are important. But in the future course, we'll be talking about the sustainable challenges, especially for the leadership challenges. As CSR head of the organization, what kind of challenges you should have, you're going to have, how you're going to handle it, what are the other case studies for that. 7 steps for the change process will be following, 7 practices of the sustainability champions, 7 paradox to use, 7 retailers to avoid, 7 personal and organization change model will be talking about, 7 case studies will be talking about national and international. So I think we are able to finish the presentation. Again, we can take some question answer session once again. Once again, I'll come out of this.
Hello.
Hello, yes. Jay
Yeah,
Arvind.
Dr. Jai. Just I wanted to ask, how do you see the convergence model in today's context and its relevance with like working with the government or other schemes or with the corporates?
See, my experience, this is, I'm sharing my personal experience. This is not a philosophy that cutting and paste from here and there. My personal experience dealing with the government and corporate is so far very good. The reason is government has the credential, right? I'll give you the example. In 2013, in Uttarakhand, we have a mega disaster. And there was a company in Bangalore called Stride Foundation, Stride Group, which is a leading pharma group. And they were able to collect some funds on the CSR. They said, okay, we would like to spend this much of amount for rebuilding, rehabilitation of that particular area. And if you see that funds, maybe that was big enough to do some activity. But we decided in collaboration with the district administration, district magistrate of Rudraprayag, which is a Kedarnath valley, that okay, we will rebuild the Anganwadis and schools in that area. Right? If the fund was, say, for example, of 1 crore or 2 crore, building a school in 2 crore was not a big money. But we enter into a tri-party kind of agreement with the government. Okay, you will provide us the land, because ultimately we have to submit that proposal and we have to hand over the school building to the government. So we enter into agreement with the state government, local government, and we signed a MOU with them. They will provide us the land. We'll provide the funds. We will construct the Anganwadis as well as the school. And you won't believe it was so good. Within 1 year, 2 years, we were able to build 10 schools. So it's a matter that if we are involving government without seeking too much of their intervention or involvement in that projects, then maybe the experience is different. But here, our experience was that we just signed a MOU on one day and we handed over the Anganwadis to the government. Maybe after 1 year or 2 years. So in between, there was no involvement of the government. So that was a good experience because the credential came from the government. When the government is there, definitely the CSR funding will also be there. And finally, you have to hand over to the government. So that is experience. So I'm saying that that's one experience. Maybe that you have a good experience or bad experience. But government being one of the major stakeholder for the development, definitely if we involve government, picture is going to be different and the scale of that project might be bigger than what you were expecting.
Because I feel after like COVID-19, there are a lot of livelihood opportunities, and convergence is one of the model where actually the corporates are like to work with the government on different things. But the way government works is like it is slow process, and corporates want to do their expenditure of that particular expenditure of their budget for that particular financial year, or maybe in a span of like 2 to 3 years for specifically for livelihood projects. So how do you see this or in present context?
See, that's why I'm saying that when you're dealing with the government, your patience has to be very different. When you're dealing with the private sector, you're working on a different wavelength. But when you're dealing with the government, you have to understand why you're dealing with the government, right? So what kind of value addition government is going to do? If you are working on the private education, maybe you don't have to involve the government. But when you're dealing with the government, why you need the government, what value addition government people are going to do, and it is going to be win-win situation for both of you, for both of us rather. Like if government is involved, are they doing something for that? That should be very clear. And your patience and your temperament has to be very different when we are dealing with the government. So definitely there's a good experience, there's a bad experience also. But the kind of speed we are expecting in the private sector is not there in the government. But yes, again, it depends on the government official, who's the district in charge for that, who's the project in charge for that. Some people are very highly passionate about the project, and in the same position, some other officers are not passionate about the project. So it's a very different experience dealing with the different official when you're the same position.
Okay, thank you.
But yes, I think that you raised a very important point, which is the convergence of the re-employment of the community, which is, I think that people are highly unemployed or migrants coming from the different part of the Delhi, Bombay and everywhere, going to Bihar, Uttar Pradesh and other districts. I think it's a good area and government will be more than happy because if you're having some kind of offer, some kind of innovative offer, and under the skill development program, state level government are already working very seriously to rehabilitate them, because government cannot keep them in one place. Otherwise, they will go back to Delhi and Bombay and create a mess for the government, right? But if you have this kind of program, I'm sure that right now the focus has to be on the COVID. Any solution which is bringing the livelihood of the people lost job, I'm sure that corporate will be happy and government will also be happy. So, Dr. Upadhyay, you have to say something?
Yes, Anil. If you really see the situation now, today we had a webinar where I had about 10 CSR heads from different companies. And what we decided was, like, say, at this point of time, there are two issues. One is working for the rural poor, and another is for the urban poor. Both are migrants. They are staying in cities, they are staying in villages, and a lot of people have gone to villages. A March study says like 25% doesn't want to come back now.
Okay.
So we have to create livelihood for them in the villages. And when you have to create livelihood for them in the villages, government alone cannot do it. They need help of the civil society because they have the reach. They know these people, they can work with them. And from where the money will come. Lot of corporates, they have allocated money for this purpose now, the CSR money. So I think these are new priorities as a nation, that we have to work for the livelihood of the people in the village. And that's where it comes working together. So the main theme was working together. And we had Mr. Ramnan from the Niti Aayog. They have already started this work. Niti Aayog is working on a strategy where they have called all these corporates and also the NGOs. So he is himself, Mr. Ramnan is himself doing this work. That's what he told us, that working with the corporates and the NGOs for the livelihood of it. So it's also, they have already started and they are doing a very good job in terms of the making of masks. Like self-help groups are making more than 2 crore masks now, and they have been given. So this job has been assigned by Niti Aayog. Self-help groups are doing it. NGOs are facilitating and corporates are giving the money for it. So I think at this point of time, all are working together. And even if you see the government orders and all also, like you saw the last time, there was a big draft amendment which was coming in the way, where it said only Section 8 companies can work in CSR. And we were told that they will notify it by 30th. But that has not happened. So a lot of things are changing there now. And it has come to a halting point where they say, okay, we have to work together. So all are going to work together now. And new type of programs are coming up. And a lot of CSR, like say, I work with Vedanta for, I am chairman of DNR Foundation. So we have got a lot of money from Vedanta to provide about 6 lakh food packets. So these food packets are being distributed in Mumbai. These are the focus. Now they are working. That's where there was a question about ATG, and we don't have ATG, but still corporates gave us money. Because as per law, you don't need ATG. It's just when it comes to compliance, that's where this COVID has exposed a lot of lacunas, lot of gaps, which were there in implementing CSR even, and working with the civil society and the companies, and that is becoming helpful. So this was the one point. And second point was, like say, a lot of government, they are coming up with new programs now, especially in UP. They are having a big livelihood mission where they have been given assignment to provide skills to these people who are there in villages. Identify their skills, provide skills to them, go for entrepreneurship, let them have an enterprise of their own. So these are the things which are on agenda. So CSR is going for a major change at this point of time. And CSR has also brought government close to the civil society. So they are working with civil society now. That's why all these orders are pending, what I mentioned for only Section 8 companies can do CSR and all. They're all pending.
So I think that's a very good information, Dr. Upadhyay. Thank you very much for sharing. I'm sure that this kind of platform need to be created where all these inputs to be given to people like Hardeep and other. Pooja is also asking about the question. We have, I think, that people from SBI. May I ask SBI team to share? Are they representing the CSR division, or can you share your views on how this, as a banker, CSR is observed and how you're implementing the programs if you are dealing with the CSR?
Hi, sir. I'm Rajiv Singhal, DGM CSR in State Bank of India.
Oh, great, sir.
Okay, usually, actually, we have created one SBI Foundation. We have two types of model. One, we have created one SBI Foundation, which is doing direct activities pan-India. And second thing is our branch channel, where we are doing smaller activities at the branches level, local level. Because, you know, State Bank of India has more than 27,000 offices across India. And we are liable to do some local activities towards the community who are banking with us. So two types of models are there. So in SBI Foundation, we have multiple projects. One is Gram Seva Mission, one is Youth for India, and other is Center of Excellence. In Gram Seva Mission, we have adopted around 100 villages, and where we are dealing with the local community as well as with the local governments and trying to help the people to solve their problems. In Youth for India, every year we identify around 100 youth across India, and we use those youths in the villages along with one NGO. Those youths reside in the village and they try to solve their problem. They try to work on their, as per their local requirement. That NGO helps us, and we give around 15,000 stipend to that youth. So all these youths, as you told, that there should be passion for the CSR. So all these are young people, and most of them are well qualified. 2-3 persons, even for their passion, they came from USA and joined our program for 1 year, taking leave from their organization. So that way we are doing in Youth for India. And Center of Excellence is for the handicapped people. What we are doing, we are training blind people so that they can be useful in the organizational setup. And for that purpose, we have identified banks and financial institutions. We have already tied up with Real Bank of India, Union Bank of India, Bank of Baroda, our SBI, Canara Bank. So we are training their staff who are blind, and we are making them more useful, more productive for their banks. And in branches, you know, we are arranging programs in the schools, just like Yoga Day, Children Day, that type of activities we are doing. We are also doing with local communities to solve their water problems. And as you told that the last 2-3 years we were working for toilets in girls' school. So that was also a big project for us. So for 18-19 and 19-20, due to profit, all banks were in red. So we were not able to do much activities. But I hope, because this year our bank has given a good result, and so this year our budget is high, and but this year we have to spend a lot of money in the COVID only. So I don't know how the future will go and how we will be able to do more activities. And one more thing is, we are also running around 152 RCTs. So these RCTs have very good infrastructure, and every year they are training more than 1 lakh people. And it is for skill development. It is a big initiative of the bank. And I think we are spending more than 50 crore rupees per year on these RCTs. So that is also, and we are also providing them financial support. If they want to do their own business, we are providing financial support. We are also linking for credit with our branches. So these are the major initiatives we are doing in CSR.
So I think, thank you very much, Rajiv. 27,000 branches, you said 20,000 branches.
27,000 offices, yes.
Oh, that's wonderful. So you have reached pan India, from one corner to other corner.
Yes, sir. Entire India.
Yeah. I think the Mr. Nixon, who's heading the CSR Foundation, is also keep on running. Is a marathon
No, he's
expert.
not heading the CSR Foundation. Nixon is not heading the foundation. Actually,
He's not heading
president
that?
there. No.
Okay.
MD is earlier Mr. Mahendra Kumar Rekhi was MD, but he retired on 31st May.
Okay.
Now Ms. Manjula Kalyan Sundaram, she is the MD. She just joined around 1 week back.
So, as a CSR person, you are full time for the CSR. I
I'm
think
full time
understand.
for
Like,
the CSR.
okay.
Full time
So,
for the CSR.
so you're based in Mumbai or?
Based in Mumbai.
Okay. Okay. So that's interesting because the banks are the backbone of the society as far as the financial inclusions are concerned. So I'm sure that if the social sector exchange and investment in the social sector will be there, so I'm sure that banking like bankers like Rajiv ji will be of great help, because that subject also need to be understand, like when you're talking about the financial inclusion, not only the social inclusion, financial inclusion is also bringing social inclusion. This is my saying.
Yeah, for financial also we are regularly taking classes in our branches. It is part of routine life.
Okay.
So what we do, especially in rural areas, we arrange some community classes. There we try to train them how they can open the account, how they can use the digital banking, how they can use their ATM cards and net banking also. If they are well qualified, we also teach them. So that is a regular process. We are not covering that in CSR, but it is a regular part of banking. Yeah.
That's so interesting. I think that your youth program is also, I was observing your youth program. That is also very important because we have to spend and invest in the future generations. So this is what SBI is doing right now. So great, Rajiv, thank you very much. Any other question or any other query you have? Would like to share your case study also, not the question, but would you like to share your experience or learning about different part of it? Because everybody is important in the ecosystem of the CSR and the sustainability. So we have to learn from each other.
Anil ji, Arvind Giri.
Ji, Arvind ji.
Yeah, I have a question actually. You have shared your thoughts on sustainability in management practices, but can you share or light some thoughts on sustainability with respect to the program or project with national and international perspectives? Because generally we see that there are like a lot of projects or program, and every corporates or the organizations whoever is working for a program or project, they feel that the sustainability should be objective, but when we try to do it practically, so a lot of challenges come many times in skilling or livelihood projects, so it is difficult also. So can you share some light or your thoughts how we can improve it more with program perspective?
See, my personal experience says that when you're talking about sustainability, because it's just a matter of new words jargon. Like I'm not very impressed with the different, whether you call it CSR, charity, philanthropy, or whatever is there. The basic purpose is your reach to somebody, and you are able to make some kind of tangible outcome in the life of somebody, right? So that is the basic purpose. And depending on the budget you have, the kind of you have to help. This is my this thing. As I mentioned in my presentation also, that sustainability is different as far as society is concerned. Sustainability is different for as far as ecology is concerned. Sustainability is different as far as economies are concerned. So your point is, or your question is, that how to make it sustainable everything, right? A different program.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, when you're spending your CSR fund for the betterment of the for the education system, that sustainability is totally different. But when you're talking about the business model where sustainability needed, in an example of Amul case or Grameen Bank kind of case, then the definition of sustainability is different, right? So it depends like what kind of programs you are running. If you're able to give good education to somebody, or to the standard of a school in a rural area, and students are learning successful in their life, becoming doctor, engineer, or whatever they're doing, they're successful. So that is a part of the sustainability. And when you're talking about constructing a school, that level of sustainability is different. So the definition of sustainability varies from the case to case basis, project to project basis. For a banker like Rajiv ji, when you go to a Rajiv ji and say that, okay, we have a project, as a banker, definitely his question for sustainability is going to be different. And if you go to Dr. K.K. Upadhyay and tell him that as a CSR head of one organization, your budget is this. So his question for sustainabilities are going to be different. So it varies, and it is very difficult to define sustainability in one line or two lines. This is sustainability. The basic purpose is, as far as your funds, your budget, CSR fund or other projects are able to make some tangible changes in somebody's life on the long-term basis, that I feel is more sustainable, and that is the definition of sustainability, rather than purely talking about the financial sustainability or society's sustainability.
Like as you mentioned that you have worked with a lot of international organization also. So
Yeah.
how sustainability has been seen with international perspective? I just wanted to know.
See, that's why I'm saying that it's a perception. And in one of my slide, I mentioned that it is not important how you are spending money. The more important, I feel, is how you are earning money also, right? If you are making money, you are a big company like Kingfisher made big CSR plan. Yes Bank made big CSR plan. Heading on the CSR portal also, I was getting a lot of news from Yes Bank and other agencies. But when you investigate and find out, okay, this is not ethical kind of things. They are more interested to get only the brand building through the media, or brand building through the inviting some celebrity on their platform. This is what they're doing. But my perception is not going for a very big names and all, big brand. Anything which is making some changes, and normally the investors are talking about ROI on that. So we call it a social return on the investments. Right? So SROI is more important than ROI only. So you have to see that how this is, if it is not your investments, your budgets are not making any negative impact on the local community, on their society, on the culture, or their value system, or the tradition. There are so many areas where a lot of successful big brands CSR are working here and there. But on the long term, we feel that we learn that the branding and the hype created by that company are not viable in that sense. So you have to see that, as Mahatma Gandhi mentioned, the small is beautiful, and accordingly we have to see that your project has to be more need-based project for the society, where the need from the society and community should come, rather than top-down approach. It should be a bottom-up approach, and that is my learning in the last many years. So you keep on changing the definition of sustainability. We are not giving any exam here right now. We are not giving we are not giving theoretical paper for that. So that's what I'm saying, that if you're able to bring some kind of tangible results, outcome on the society wherever you are working, on whatever budget you are working with, that is more important than comparing your sustainability or with somebody else.
Thank you.
Sir, I have a question. You just mentioned about social return on investment, and then it is said that corporates are not making a negative impact on the society. But obviously, my understanding is just to develop their SROI, they get into unethical practices. They are reporting things which should not be done. If you involve a third party also, then you also are poking the third party to report the data in a format that you want them to report. So isn't it based on a human bias rather than a quantitative factors? Because obviously if we talk about ROI, there are certain factors which cannot be modified. But I'm sure SROI is obviously and every time is modified as per the corporate image. I am very sure there aren't corporates which are going to show in the market that the project I have invested is making a negative impact in the society. So if your viewpoints on this.
Good observation, Akansha. See, what is happening is sometimes I feel as an Indian that some of our cases are hijacked by the multilateral agencies, not MNCs, but INGOs also. And all this jargon of the words coming from the Western world, you call it a CSR or reporting kind of things. Now, as far as we are talking about the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Indian version of the CSR, as we mentioned about the OECD version of the CSR, we mentioned about the ISO 26000 version of the CSR, we spoke about the UN 17 goals, which are called the global goals. So these are the different areas. Now the challenge in India right now, everybody is facing is, you're doing very good. Mr. X is doing very good. Y is doing very good. But reporting format reporting process is also very, very important. Multinational companies, they are very good in reporting. And internationally, even in India, they have an office called GRI, which is a global reporting initiative. It's a Dutch standard, right? In Indian standard, there is no format for GRI, right? Local version of the GRI is not there. And as far as ROI and SROI is concerned, so I think that you can visualize that ROI is there. Anybody can see that I invested X amount of money in a particular project, and my returns are this much. But as far as parameter and benchmarking of SORI is concerned, so again, I'm not able to find. There are some agencies, those who are doing this kind of activity, but for the grassroots NGOs, those who are not able to write a good report, again, the challenge here is for the report writing, you need to have very good English writing skills. And NGOs working the grassroots, they don't have this kind of skills. And the benchmarking for SORI is also not there, right? What kind of benchmarking will be there? Maybe from the panel, if somebody is aware about this SORI benchmarking, I would like to invite and would like to listen what they have to see, whether Dr. Upadhyay is there or somebody else is there. But there is no Indian standard of SORI where we can say that this much money has been invested on that and this much of returns has been found through social returns. So this is a challenge. That's why I'm saying that NGOs, INGOs are able to file the reporting. They are able to write a very good reporting on the GRI format. But if I to write as a small NGO, if I to write my GRI report, it is going to cost me money. And same is with a small NGO. They are not willing to spend money for their reporting format. Who's going to judge what kind of SORI is there, SROI is there? So if anybody from the group is there, I'll be more than happy to listen what kind of standards and benchmarking is there for nationally or internationally.
Anil, Dr. Anil.
Yes, sir.
There are very few organizations which go for SROI. As you rightly said, there's no national or international standards as such. But there are organizations which are undertaking it. But I'll take it tomorrow. There are a lot of other standards which are followed. So there's a whole, what you call, what Akanksha asked. See, when it comes to doing good, there are a lot of organizations which are doing good. But good thing is, like the organization, as your Dr. Anil also mentioned, they get a good return which do very good work, like Tata's. We always call it a Tata Namak. So I think good organizations are getting a good return for their CSR. That's why a lot of organizations also do SROI. But Dr. Anil is very right when he says that they are not followed international or national standards. Thank you.
Well, but what do you think? SROI, according to me, is a very loose term that is being currently used by the corporate. Imagine, this is my previous experience, if we spend around 10 lakhs and we support 1,000 children for their midday meals, that is considered to be a good SORI, whereas I'm spending 11 lakh rupees to support 10 children. So nowadays, corporates are not actually using this as a very definite term. So they're just seeing that how many beneficiaries are impacted in a certain amount of money. But then obviously supporting a full family care project versus supporting someone's midday meal cannot be actually calculated as a return on investment, and probably governing the same will also be a very difficult task. What are your opinions and inputs on the same?
Akanksha, you are 100% right. A lot of people, but that's why we professionals are there. That's why we are here to put things in a right perspective. For that, two things are needed. First thing is we also must also know about SROI. And second thing is there has to be competent people to do it. I will try to take it for because we don't have much time. I'll try to take it for about 5 minutes tomorrow. And also give you example, even government is taking up this in some of the projects. There are good intentioned people in the government also, and they are doing it. But what you say is 100% right. I think we'll discuss it later on. Thank you, Akanksha.
Dr. Upadhyay, you have a session tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay.
One last question, sir.
Yeah, please,
Ajit
please.
sir, one last question. We would like to understand what opportunities are coming after COVID-19 towards NGO, or how NGO should prepare for upcoming days to fulfill this sustainable goals. So if you can share some few views on this, it would be helpful for us.
See, I can see a lot of opportunities coming during and post-COVID session. As earlier also we discussed that livelihood is going to be the major challenge for that. And in the NGO sector, on the social sector, only issue is that you keep on, like, if I'm running NGOs and I'm not upgrading myself, that is another challenge, right? So we need to upgrade ourselves. We need to understand like what kind of market forces are working. Like nobody expected a few months back that COVID is going to make such a large impact on that. But I'm sure that the kind of and we have started working on that. For example, we are using blockchain technology to identify the migrants coming back to Bihar and Jharkhand. Right, there are more than 22 lakhs migrants came back to Jharkhand, and government is also not able to make their database through using the state-of-art technology like AI, Internet of Things, and blockchain technology. So we have already submitted a proposal to different government, all the migrants going out of the state. I'm giving only one example. All migrants of the labor class going out of the state should have kind of registration with the state government. Because in this kind of crisis, when people were crying in Surat, Maharashtra, Bombay, Delhi, government was having no clue like how many people from Bihar are working in Mumbai or in Delhi, right? So now government has agreed that okay, UP government is also working on that, Bihar government is also working on that to maintain a database for that. And to maintain a database, again, government needs to have some kind of association with the local NGOs and civil society organization to identify their name, their qualification, their professional expertise. For example, if somebody good carpenter came back from Mumbai to Jharkhand, so government is not aware about it. So this kind of database will make some kind of matchmaking between the different agencies, including the government and private sector. I'm looking for a carpenter, I'm looking for a fabricator, but I have no database. So this gray area which was there in the market, like we have a database of the professional with headhunters in the HR companies working the multinational in the metros, but we don't have a database of the maid working here and there. We don't have a database of the sweeper working here and there. So this kind of system is there. So this is one example where we are already working on that. And I'm sure that looking at the local issues, looking at the local opportunities, challenges, all NGOs as well as the CSR people can also work on that. So definitely the focus right now is for everybody's COVID and post-COVID opportunities. And once COVID will come down, the number will come down. Market is already open. Market will definitely expand because without economic activity, nothing is going to happen. So that's the reason government is also interested to have some kind of more commercial activity to create employment for the local community, migrants, and this thing. The role of CSR, role of NGOs, civil society is going to take place in a big way. It's already there. So I feel it's a lot of opportunities will emerge after the COVID also. Yes, sir. Any other, sir?
Thank you.
So it's already 9 o'clock. So session is. Thank you very much for making the session very vibrant, very interesting, very interactive. So for me also it was major learning. Thank you very much for your support, Dr. K.K. Upadhyay and all of you. So we'll be in touch, and my good wishes once again for your session tomorrow. Sneha, you have to say something.
Yes, sir. Thank you for a very informative session. I hope everybody have cleared their doubts, and we'll see tomorrow again with Dr. Upadhyay.
Nice.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Hello, take care, stay safe, all of you.
Thank you very much. Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Jaggi. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.